never forget my first time wandering Gerudo Desert in Breath of the Wild. I entered the desert during the day, trying to find protective gear from the sun, when night came. Suddenly, I realized I was losing hearts because Link was cold. He was cold in the middle of a desert. A desert. I'd heard the stories about deserts getting cold at night, but when I saw this in Breath of the Wild, and later Tears of the Kingdom, I had to know for myself why this happened and if it was accurate to what happens in real life. Would a Link actually need cold gear to keep him warm during the night in a desert? Or is this being over-exaggerated? Well, I'm not gonna delay, let's jump right in. We can't get into this without discussing what constitutes a desert climate. A desert climate is defined as a place where evaporation exceeds precipitation and... that's pretty much it. Yes, that's seriously all we need for a place to be considered a desert. While some deserts have a difference in average temperature, the only real requirement for a place to be a desert is for evaporation to exceed precipitation. This leads to there being many different types of deserts. Regardless of their terrain, deserts are extremely dry, with many of them consisting of dry soils of some sort. In BOTW and TOTK, we are decidedly dealing with a traditional desert, which is dry, extremely hot during the day, and absolutely covered in sand no matter what way we turn. Seriously, why did it have to be sand? It's coarse, rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere! How do people tolerate it? Setting aside my grievances with sand for a moment, the terrain being mostly covered with it makes the climate act differently than many people might be used to. I don't know about the rest of you, but I grew up in an area that was only slightly above sea level where we had precipitation year-round. The climate where I grew up is completely different from a desert climate. One of the reasons why this is because sand and grass absorb and maintain heat differently. To make sense of why this happens, we need to talk about albedo and specific heat. Maybe you've heard these terms before, maybe you haven't. That's what I'm here for. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration defines albedo as a fraction of light that a surface reflects. This value ranges from 0 to 1, though you may see some people convert these to percentages. 0 means a surface only absorbs solar radiation and doesn't reflect any of it, whereas if we have a value of 1, it means that the surface only reflects solar radiation and absorbs none of it. Any value in between that means some light is reflected and some light is absorbed. Most surfaces on Earth have an albedo between 0 and 1. Earth in general has an average albedo of 0.3, meaning it absorbs more solar radiation than it reflects. So what exactly are albedo values for, say, sand, grassy plains, and other surfaces? Well, to figure this out, I went back to one of the few textbooks I actually bought back in the day to find some albedo values for you. For a grassy field, the albedo can be between 0.1 and 0.3, indicating that it absorbs a great amount of solar radiation. Sand, on the other hand, has a bit of a different range, from 0.15 to 0.45. This tells us that sand, while it will absorb a greater amount of solar radiation, actually reflects more of it than grass does. Since sand reflects more solar radiation than grass, on average, it means that it generally does not hold as much heat as grass does. That's not to say that desert sands do not hold heat at all. If you've ever walked on sand after the sun has been shining on it for a little while, you know that it's usually hot. Why is this the case, even though it reflects more solar radiation than grass? Well, with an albedo value between 0.15 and 0.45, it still absorbs a good amount of solar radiation, which allows for it to heat up. But that's not the only difference between sand and grass we need to consider here. The other parameter we need to discuss is specific heat, which is defined as the quantity of heat required to raise the temperature of one unit of a substance by 1 degree. This unit could be in grams, kilograms, or various other units, with the temperature being either degrees Celsius or Kelvin. So I went to go find the specific heat values of sand and grass. I know they're not close together, but I couldn't remember the exact values to save my life. And apparently neither could the internet. I got conflicting answers as to what specific heat of sand and grass are, so here's my best estimate of each. Sand specific heat is between 670 to 830 joules per Kelvin per kilogram. Grass, on the other hand, has a much higher specific heat of anywhere between 3,000 to 3,600 joules per Kelvin per kilogram. So what does this tell us? It means that sand heats up at a quicker rate than grass does. While sand may not absorb as much solar radiation as something like grass, what it does absorb allows for it to heat up quickly, resulting in the temperature of the sand increasing by quite a bit over a short period of time. On the other hand, grass has a higher specific heat, meaning it will take grass longer to heat up than sand. While it absorbs a bit more solar radiation, because of its naturally higher specific heat, it doesn't heat up anywhere near as quickly. This is why sand ends up being hotter than grass during the day, when left in the sun for the same period of time. Sand's specific heat is more conducive to heating up quickly. We see evidence of this in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The desert sands are extremely hot during the day, requiring Link to wear gear that protects him from said heat. If he doesn't, in the character menus, he sways to show he's hurting a little bit, likely from the beginning stages of heat exhaustion or heat stroke. His actions during these moments indicates to me that the processes I've described are occurring. As a result of sand's naturally low specific heat, it keeps the climate of the desert nice and hot, resulting in this region affecting Link's abilities to maintain his body temperature. However, there's something we need to discuss regarding specific heat. What happens if we lose heat? See, if a substance has a high specific heat, it takes longer for that heat to be lost over time. Since it takes so long for heat to be gained in the first place, it takes just as long for heat to dissipate. A really good example of this is looking at a lake's temperature transition from spring to summer. In the spring, while temperatures are warmer, the lake water is normally really cold due to water's high specific heat, but it is slowly heating up during the day and losing only a fraction of that heat at night. As we progress later into the summer, the lake's water will increase in temperature since it loses heat more slowly than it gains heat, resulting in the water being warmer in the later parts of the season. What about something with a lower specific heat though, like sand? Recall how it heats up relatively quickly during the day. What happens when the sun goes down? The heat that it did have is lost relatively quickly, resulting in the sands becoming cold once again. It doesn't take very long. Shortly after sundown, without the sun beating down on the sand, it cools off relatively quickly. As a result, the sand is now cold, and the atmosphere closest to the ground is also cold. This results in desert regions decreasing in temperature rapidly overnight. So what does this mean for our hero in green, blue in these games? Well, since it's getting cold, he's definitely going to start needing some warm clothes to keep him warm during these cold desert nights. But is it to the point where he should need the same cold gear that he has in places with some snow on the ground? That's debatable. Don't get me wrong, he definitely needs some warm clothes for the colder temperatures we see in the desert at night. He shouldn't be walking around without something. Yet when Link takes damage due to the cold, I suspect it's because he's in the beginning stages of developing frostbite. You might be asking yourself then, frostbite in the desert? What exactly is frostbite? The official definition is an injury caused by the freezing of the skin and underlying tissue. Depending on the temperature of the outdoors and the wind speeds, frostbite can start occurring on the human body in as little as 5 minutes. However, for that to happen, you'd need fast wind speeds at extremely cold temperatures. Don't believe me? Here's a chart of how quickly frostbite can develop given different temperatures and wind speeds from the National Weather Service. Looking at this, it seems that the warmest temperature we can see frostbite occur within 5 minutes or less is negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 12.2 degrees Celsius if you're literally anywhere else in the world, at wind speeds of 60 miles per hour or 96.6 kilometers per hour. We're not talking slow wind speeds or average cold temperatures you'd see in the middle of a desert at night. It has to be windy and cold for frostbite to occur in such a short period. Link, in general, shouldn't be able to freeze and lose hearts in this region. He should definitely need a warmer shirt and pants. He shouldn't be wearing no clothes at all, after all, but desert temperatures don't get to the point where they're liable to cause frostbite. The most that could possibly happen to Link here is maybe frost nip, the very first stage of frostbite. However, I don't see this being likely since temperatures are on the higher end of the cold end of the spectrum. Now, temperatures can be below freezing in a desert at night, but even with this, with the wind speeds being generally light and Link usually wearing suitable clothes, I don't see him getting frostbite in the desert. Yes, he should be cold at night, and that's displayed well, but he definitely should not be freezing to the point of losing multiple hearts. He should need a coat to keep him warm, and that's pretty much it. I can see why they require Link to wear 1 layer of cold gear in the desert at night instead of 2. It would be plenty to protect him from the cold. But even without cold gear, he probably shouldn't be losing hearts this quickly. Frost nip needs some time to develop in these conditions. It would take some time before he even starts to freeze. Granted, the in-game clock moves quickly, with multiple hours passing by in literal real-world minutes, so I guess if you go with the logic, it's more likely, but it still doesn't make sense from the meteorologist's perspective if we ignore said clock. Which I often do, because if the sun and moon truly move as quickly as they do, that would throw the weather, the tides, and more completely out of whack in this universe. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. I have more on the way for you. I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.